How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. I thought it'd be kind of cool to do something a little different. We just got done watching Wakanda Forever, and I thought about, what was my favorite stuff about Marvel Phase 4. I went ahead and put together a tier list. Let's go break it down. Coming up next. All right, so we got our Marvel Phase 4 items all listed here. I thought a tier list system would be just kind of fun, something interactive we can do. I'll see if I can link this down in the description as well, so you all can take it and you can kind of post your pictures. What do you think? What are your differences? What do you agree on? What do you disagree on? And I actually pulled this from the wiki page for Marvel Phase 4. If you go down here, you can see we have Black Widow, we have Shang-Chi, we have Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Thor, Love and Thunder, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. That wraps up the films, and then we have the TV series WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, What If Season 1, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Miss Marvel. I also threw in Werewolf by Night. I did not include Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special because it's not out yet. And so I wanted to go ahead and put this out. And I don't know if that's going to have a big impact on the MCU in general. But if it ends up doing that, maybe we can do a quick recap and add that one in there. So we have a standard tier system approach. If you don't know what that is, S tier is the highest you can be. Then we have followed by our A, B, C, and D. And so basically what we're going to do is we have the images of all the shows and movies down here. We're going to click and drag and put them where they need to go. So I haven't actually done this before. I do know what shows I liked and disliked and what movies I liked and disliked, but I haven't put them in this kind of a system. So I feel like I need to have kind of a benchmark. Like, what do I think is the best thing out so far? And I know it might be a little unfair to put the movies in with the TV shows, but I want to put it all together. I just thought it would be something kind of neat to try to mix them all up. So what do I think is the best thing out from Marvel Phase 4? I think Spider-Man No Way Home is probably the best. So we're gonna put some stuff down, and we might make some adjustments as we go. So if I think this is probably one of the best things, I'm gonna drop it in the S tier just for now. It was such a fun film, a lot of fan service, very emotional, tons of action. Cinematography was great. I thought the characters were all really good. Doctor Strange is a little bit weird in that one. But I think that's a good spot for that one for right now. So let's kind of work our way down a little bit here. What did we not like the most? I'm going to put What If down towards the bottom. And again, we're going to adjust these as we go, as we fill these in. Our opinions are probably going to change as we go. So if we have Spider-Man No Way Home, we have that there. You know what? I really liked Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. It's a movie that I can watch over and over again, and I don't feel bad doing it. Whereas I tried to watch Eternals again the other day, and I just couldn't get through to it. But for the sake of the impact of the MCU, I'll give it a point. But again, we'll kind of play around with this stuff a little bit. Wakanda, I'm gonna say Wakanda Forever. Man, I don't think it has the rewatchability that I have with Doctor Strange. For me personally, I think it's better than Eternals for sure. So I'm gonna put it in that B spot for right now. Black Widow, I'm going to put that in the C spot. Didn't really have a great villain. Taskmaster was just weird. It had a great opening scene, and it had some familiar characters, and it did some cool things. So we're going to drop it in the C spot for right now. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm going to probably drop that in the B for now. We'll see how that stacks up once we start putting some more stuff on here. Hawkeye, again, probably B range. It wasn't great. It was, kind of holiday themed. The Echo character, I could care less about. That show's coming out soon. Don't really care. I don't like what they did with, the Kingpin. They kind of changed him a lot. His persona, the way he handles himself, that swagger that he had, it's just not there anymore. And so we'll see how he plays out in the future series. If he has some kind of like memory thing from getting shot, I think that's the idea anyways. But I'm going to leave it in the B spot for right now. Loki, I think, was interesting. I'm kind of surprised that a lot of people had issues with this show. I'm going to put it up in the A spot just because I think it has such a huge impact. It was so fun. He's just a great, great actor, a lot of charisma, and I think it was really interesting. And every episode was just kind of trippy, and I liked the way they executed that. Moon Knight, I'm going to drop it down into the C. because I think it started strong. The first like 1.5 episodes was great. If they took the feel from the first episode and blew that out into every single episode, I think Moon Knight would have been spectacular. Man, I don't remember a single person at the end of that first episode saying, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. I'm like, dude, that was awesome. The way he was blacking out, waking up in weird situations with like people dead around him. And then that final scene at the end where he finally transforms and takes on whatever that monster was, that was incredible. And it was great. It was great. But the series really went downhill from there. All right, with that said, let's keep going. Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was an interesting show. Very much like Moon Knight, but the shelf life lasted a lot longer, right? I think it was probably the first 3 to 4 episodes of Miss Marvel were really good, and then it started to taper down. It did a lot of weird things, cool origin like twists on her and her family and everything like that, and her power set. So I'm gonna probably put that back up here. I liked it more than Hawkeye, but man, not a whole lot more. I don't like it as much as I liked Loki or Doctor Strange. So I'm going to put it in the B. Again, we're going to adjust these towards the end. Shang-Chi, I'm going to put this right up here in the A spot, just because that's a great movie. It was just such a fun movie. Lots of action, incredible, nice world building. You can see how it connects to the broader narrative in Phase 4. They're sending out some kind of a signal. There's some kind of ancient power at play here, and everyone's trying to figure it out. Very much like Loki, there's a gigantic time ripple right now. It's affecting everybody. Obviously, Scarlet Witch as well, introducing the multiverse, all that stuff, bringing us into the Secret Wars direction. So lots of impact up here. So I think movies like that kind of deserve the top spot, those movies and shows. So let's keep going here. We have She-Hulk. So I'm going to put She-Hulk down in the D tier. It was a comedy that wasn't funny. It was making fun of itself and the people... And it took a lot of shots at the community itself, and it was making fun of itself at the same time. I really wanted a more lawyer-based, how do we handle all these different people showing up with powers from a legal perspective? That's what I was really hoping for. And it turned into like this big meme show. And then the ending was completely absurd. The last episode was completely absurd. It rewrote itself halfway through. And it was like, all right, well, we solved all the problems. It just wasn't a great show, in my opinion. It was not a great show. I'm going to put that down in the D tier. I actually enjoyed What If more than that. Thor, Love and Thunder. Man, this is a hard one. Do I put it in D or do I put it in C? It was an absurd... you know what? I'm putting it in D. And the reason is because they went too far in the wrong direction from a... feel perspective. So they took what they did in Ragnarok. They found they think they understood what was successful about Ragnarok, and they turned it up to 11. So they really laid into the comedy aspect of it, and it just went too far. There was not like a single real moment, and when there was supposed to be a single real emotional moment, you didn't quite know if it was like a sarcasm kind of a thing, because they just ruined every moment prior to that. So it just did not do a whole lot for me. Gore was the best part of that, but he wasn't in it that much. And even the transition from scenes where Gore was not in it to scenes when he was in it, it felt like watching two different movies. It was like, yeah, I really dig that feel when Gore was on screen, but when he was off screen, it was just like, I couldn't tell the difference between them acting out the scenes when like Matt Damon was on the stage. It's like, that's what the movie is now. It's just that. And it was just kind of ridiculous. And I didn't like it. All right, so let's go into the last couple here, and then we're going to do some adjustments, I think. We'll talk through that here in a second. So we have WandaVision. So I loved WandaVision. So I'm immediately going to put it up here in one of the first two. Does it have the rewatchability that like Doctor Strange has or Shang-Chi? Maybe, but that's not as important. Maybe that's not everything, right? Rewatchability. I think I'm going to put it on the S tier because what I think it did was it set the expectation for all the Disney Plus shows because it was the first one. I think her character arc was handled very, very well on this one. She had extreme loss. She had extreme guilt, extreme anger. And we didn't find out until like episode 2 or 3 or maybe 4, the extent of how broken she was in the world that she created. And then we saw her get contested toward the end. And that really led into the Multiverse of Madness, obviously. And so that was a really interesting journey, interesting ride, cool twist, set the bar for sure. And not a lot of shows that come out since then have been able to meet that. I think the closest one was Loki, but the other ones fell really short in some instances. So I am comfortable with putting it up there in the S tier. And then Werewolf by Night, I really loved it. But again, it had that Thor Love and Thunder thing where they said, okay, humor seems to work in the MCU. Let's lean into it a little bit, even in our horror shows. And if they just stuck to more of the horror show aspect, like get that real thrilling vibe, if they really leaned into that a little bit more and they mirrored what they were doing with the cinematography, with the black and white, with the angles and things like that, with the character designs, if they leaned more into that and less into the, hey, everyone liked Ragnarok and they thought it was funny, so let's make this funny as well. I'll have kind of over-the-top characters, throw in a couple lines here and there. If they really stuck to the core of what the show should have been, it would have been S tier for me, but it was really good still. So I'm going to move that into the A tier. So let's take a peek at this real quick and see if this is kind of how we want things to be lined up here. So again, No Way Home was great. I would watch it again. It had some ramifications for sure. Had a lot of characters in it, a lot of fan service. I feel like I was smiling a lot of the time when I wasn't crying when I was watching this movie. You know, it was just, there was a lot going on here. I think that was a great movie. So I'm okay with that being in the S tier. WandaVision, S tier might be high, but it's my favorite show of the shows. So I think I'm okay putting that up there as well. Multiverse of Madness is another one that I almost want to bump up to the A or to the S tier because I liked it way more than Loki or Shang-Chi or Werewolf. So if this was kind of like the order of A, like this would be the most, the highest ranked of the A tier, this might be the appropriate order. Doctor Strange, Shang-Chi, Loki, and Werewolf by Night. I think I'm going to do that. Of the A tier, this is my most enjoyed A tier show or movie. So let's do that for the rest of them down here. So Wakanda Forever, I'm probably going to do this. Actually, no. Let me flip that around if I can get that sandwiched in there. And then I did enjoy Hawkeye more than I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I think that's appropriate for B tier right there. All right, for C tier, man, this is where it gets a little ugly because I actually tried to rewatch Eternals the other day and I got about halfway through and I was like, man, I think I just wanted to watch the ending, like the last 30 minutes and then the post-credit scenes more than I wanted to watch the first hour and a half or so. So, man, but was Black Widow better? It had a more familiar character, obviously with Scarlett Johansson in it, introduced some stuff. So I think that's appropriate. And oh gosh, but then with Moon Knight, C tier is kind of a mess. I think I like Black Widow more than the other two. So I think I'm okay leaving that, although it's probably a tie for the second place here rather than a first, second, third. And then for the, for the bottom part here, What If is, I think, clearly the winner here. And then actually, you know what If, I'm going to bump What If, here you go. I'm going to bump this up and put it above Eternals just because it was just fun to see this kind of a thing, to see What If. And I would be more inclined to put that on as like a background filler when I'm doing stuff around the house than I would Eternals or Moon Knight. So maybe that's another criteria here. This is very scientific, guys. This is a very scientific poll right here. I'm putting a lot of thought into this. And then She-Hulk and Thor and Love and Thunder. I liked Thor. I would watch Thor and Love and Thunder again over She-Hulk for sure. I think that's probably the worst thing they've done this so far. So I think this is a pretty good list right here. So in the S tier, we have Spider-Man No Way Home and WandaVision. Probably one of the most impactful movies for, emotionally, action-wise, great cast of characters, lots of little twists and turns. It was great. WandaVision really set the stage for everything related to the shows, like to set the bar for quality at least. And the impact of that show had rippling effects down into the MCU. And we'll get into that right next, right here. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, obviously a direct tie into WandaVision, opened the world for multiverse, set the stage for Secret Wars, hugely impactful movie. And Sam Raimi, I'm a big Sam Raimi fan. I haven't seen everything he's done. Everything I've seen, I've loved. I was smiling the entire time when I was watching this movie. So definitely deserves an A spot, if not an S spot. That might be a regret of mine, not moving this to the S spot. Shang-Chi, really cool movie, different direction, different style. The pacing was really interesting. I did not like the Awkwafina character, but everything else seemed to be okay. And the main plot was a little bit weird, like, the ghost of your wife calling to you and you're completely blind to everything. But that was part of the love, the rage behind his love, right? So that was interesting. Loki, again, set the stage for what's happening in the next phase of Marvel. So it's going to be really fun to see what Kang ends up doing. Werewolf by Night, really introducing that horror aspect into Marvel. A little bit too quippy here and there, a little bit too much humor sprinkled in there, especially with the character designs and how they were acting out the characters. The ancillary characters, not the main ones. If they fixed that, it would probably be a stronger A list for me, but definitely an A tier. Wakanda Forever, great movie. Had some focusing issues. Listen, they overcame so much with the passing of Chadwick Boseman. They overcame so much to make this movie what it is, and I applaud them for that. I would have changed a few different things, but what do I know? Highly enjoyable movie. Namor was great, and it was a good sequel for sure. They did the best they could do with what they had. Miss Marvel, better than average for the shows, for sure. The first 3 episodes were especially great. Quality kind of went down towards the end. Some things didn't quite line up towards the end. Some things were throwaway things that we were supposed to be highly invested in. And so that was a little bit confusing towards the end, but had a great start to it. Hawkeye was fun. But again, MCU is putting this weird element of humor into everything now. And sometimes that humor and sometimes those conversations, they were charming, but they weren't necessarily aligned with the theme of the show or with the seriousness of the show. A good example is Falcon and Winter Soldier. It knew what it was ahead of time because we've established this relationship between these two main characters, and they are kind of at each other's throat. They're always kind of doing a lot of ball breaking anyways, and so that was appropriate for them, and it carried through, and that handled a lot of social issues as well. So very, very powerful show, and it's going to have obvious ramifications for the rest of the MCU. Black Widow, I wish it would have come out a little bit earlier, honestly. If it came out a year or two earlier, came out on directly to the theater, maybe it would have been more impactful, but that doesn't fix the bad guy. It doesn't fix Taskmaster. So if they would have just changed that a little bit, I think this would have made a bump up to the B spot. What If was just fun because it was the first of its kind. Very interesting. Reminds me of the comics for sure. It was just cool to kind of see. Eternals, kind of hard to rewatch a second or third time. I got lost halfway through again. Not lost from a narrative perspective, but just my interest, kind of peaks. It's only really peaked about halfway through the movie, and then I can really start paying attention. Moon Knight started strong, ended pretty weak. Ragnarok turned the dial up on the humor when it didn't need to. They had a real serious, real edgy villain with gore, and they just needed the rest of the movie to kind of match that. But they went in the complete opposite direction, was really disappointed. And we talked about She-Hulk as well as far as what my expectations were there. So what's really kind of fun about this is it's basically a bell curve, right? You shouldn't have a whole bunch of stuff in the S or in the D tier here. You should have kind of this kind of arc right here. So that was completely unintentional, but it works out from a tiering bell curves perspective. So that was kind of fun to explore. But yeah, guys, this is my tier list for Marvel Phase 4. Let me know what your lists are and where you agree and disagree down below in the comments. Keep it civil, of course. Everyone's has their own opinion of the shows and the movies and how they interpret them and everything like that. But I think this is pretty much where I'm going to stand on this. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of duds out there as well. But let me know if you have any differences down below. But that'll about wrap it up. If it's your first time here, consider hitting that sub button and also follow me on Instagram. Links will be down below in the description. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you guys down in the comments.